Good. Thank you very much, Pradesh and Adan, all of you, for inviting me to be with all of you today on a very interesting topic, which is adapting to the new life and work that we are all going through. So when you look at how things have moved during this period, you really look at the Indian stock market. Actually, it has remained quite resilient over the past several weeks, during this period of the COVID crisis. Though the economic activity has been hit in several states, investors still remain very optimistic. So this is something which really looks at it, and then you find that I don't really fully believe that the stock market is an index for the overall economic growth of a region. But clearly, this is something which gives us a feel that things are going on well. When you look at it, both the S&P, Sensex, the Nifty 50, all of them have been really registering strong weekly gains, despite the rising cases and declining economic activity. The rising cases on COVID, we believe there's an economic activity declining, but this is what you see there. The strong results which have been posted by many of the companies for Q4 2021, which is the last quarter of the last year, is a key reason behind the market optimism. So which means the feeling that came about is that in spite of all this, if the companies did well, market should be doing better over a period of time. Also, you will find that the resultant commentary, companies seem to be confident that business profitability will grow in the coming quarters. What each of us need to do and what each of you need to do is go back, look at your own businesses, look at your own companies and see, have you really gone through a very, very bad patch? Or has the company survived this crisis in a way? Okay, so this is something which we each need to look at. And in view of the strong earnings that has been shown, we are finding that things are actually, in spite, even when we went through the second wave of the COVID also, you really found that not too much of, you see a small dip and then it picks up again. So there are many reasons behind investor optimism. Many commodities like steel, copper, etc., the prices have gone up. And as a result, you find that investors are pumping money into those commodity sectors and related companies to get a better business. And the returns that they expect will be in the future. And while economic conditions are gradually worsening this year as well, the devastation has been largely limited due to the fewer mobility restrictions that have happened. This has helped business operations continue, and the loss of employment has been limited to some extent in the second wave. Now, exports in the first week of March also indicate a very positive trend. So are we looking at an economic boom? I don't think so. But the fact is that things are getting better. But then there's a big question. And the question is, why isn't the customer confidence going up? Why is not customer confidence growing? Okay. So when you look at these, you get a clear picture that actually when you look at responses on studies done, you find that things are not at the level it should be. But the current situation, okay, in terms of when you look at this, it dropped in May 2021 from 53.1 to in March, and according to the Reserve Bank, okay, customer confidence has been coming down. And if you look at an index of 100 is a level that divides optimism from pessimism, the RBI has stated that respondents to the survey were bleak about the year ahead. The future expectation index would drop to 96.4. And from 109 in the period, the survey was removed. So household spending has also weakened. And I think we all know about it. Even if you look at each of our spendings, you will find that our household spending, the amount of money that we spent in the past has really come down. There is a fear on why should I spend? Is this expense really required? And that is how you look at going. Now, so that is another. Lower consumer confidence is bad news for any economy. And because every economy is primarily driven by consumption. So this is what I would say is a confusing trend. Now, when you look at this, what I would say, welcome to the new normal. The trend is one of the many things about the new normal. Now, let me go back in time. In 1973, off an island in Iceland, there was what they call the Eldfell volcano, which was dormant for a very long time. it erupted. And it destroyed over 400 homes. Okay? Over 400 homes were destroyed in that. The government compensated the unlucky people who lost their homes, many of whom never returned. But when, a study was done by the University of California, Berkeley, I think it was a Professor Nakamura and John Steinson who did the study as part of from the Norwegian School of Economics. When they studied this and they discovered a reversal in fortunes, and I'll tell you why I'm talking about that. A reversal in fortunes. Among the people less than 25 years old at the time of the eruption, those who moved from that location averaged 4 years of additional schooling. And their earnings were $27,000 more per year than those families which remained there and were not forced to move out. It's a very interesting trend. And one of the things is being forced to move has had its advantages. So when you look at the northern part of India, for example, a lot of the people who left everything before partition and moved have really done well after that. And there are certain communities who've done well. You look at people like the Punjabis, others who've really done well overall, but many, many businesses grew out of that period. So being forced to move has its advantages. The COVID-19 pandemic is a disaster in orders of magnitude worse than the volcano I talked to you about. And yet, it too has created an experiment. And people are looking at what it is, how do I do it? The idea that disruption can lead to improvement is something which is promoted by several writers globally, people like Tim Harford or Nassim Nicholas. They all talk about, disruption, talk of it as anti-fragile. And they say that disruption actually brings in development. Cities that were built to exploit a locational advantage that has disappeared tend to persist unless they are swept away by a disaster. When faced with the tube strikes in 2014, many London commuters found new ways of getting to work, such that the strike, it is estimated actually that they saved more commuting hours during that time than it was. For us and for COVID-19, we will really need to see, and we will know in the next few years whether it has really made a change or not. This picture, which you are seeing here, is actually from, I think it's a band called 660. It's a popular Kiwi band. They played for a real group of over 50,000 people. This is not pre-COVID. It is during COVID that this happened, okay? And they had 50,000 plus people. Next time they will tell you it's impossible. The band wrote when then they said, show them this photograph. Because alongside was a photo of the sort of crowds unseen in most of the world since the early 2020. The key is not to keep on with the restrictions, but to live along with COVID. And that is something which we need to do. I'm not telling that any of us have to break the laws or the rules that the government is imposing, but we have to learn to live along with COVID, as we've learned to live along with the common cold and the flu and the dengue and others. So we need to learn to live along with COVID. And this is something which is very, very, very important. So people will have to change their behavior to prevent further waves of the virus. Okay. So it is not that you keep on the restrictions. We need to see how we can get over them over a period of time. Even in countries which were with the worst outbreaks, just 5 to 15% of the people have been infected. This may be immune to future infections, at least for a while, but with most of the population still susceptible. In fact, like people in places like Kerala, you still have a very large population which have not been impacted. Getting back to life as usual, we should never think it is impossible. There is a possibility that we will be able to do that, and we need to be confident about it. So I still believe that there are opportunities that are coming up. The disease would again grow rapidly. Hospitals can get overwhelmed, but we just need to be careful, and we need to learn to protect ourselves and protect others. So it all depends on how much we are going to comply with the rules of wearing masks, etc. And you will see that this is something which has happened very well in many parts of the world. In fact, many of us who've traveled, in the last 5, 6 years or 10 years would remember the time when many of the people from Japan or Korea would be wearing a mask as they travel. And, we would look to them and say, are these guys so immune? Okay. The fact is that they were all taking precautions because they know what they went through with the SARS and the bird flu and things like that. So we need, even as we take precautions, we are desperate for life to return to something like normalcy that is there. So convincing people to change their behavior in ways needed to prevent new waves of COVID-19 will really rely on the people worrying about others as well as themselves. So I need to worry about myself. I should not get infected by somebody. And if I'm a carrier, I should not be infecting somebody. That is a thought process that each of us will need. Beating back a virus that has spread around the world with such ferocity. I don't say it is impossible, but it can only happen if we all play the rules of what I would say is the new normal. We will have to learn to live in a world which will be far more digital than ever before. In fact, there are a lot of interest. I'm not going too much into detail, but the post-COVID world will be far more digital. From remote working to online retail, the pandemic has compressed years. People who are thinking of doing certain digital transformations, 5-year, 10-year plans have done it in less than a year. Major banks have done it, and I have another slide coming up with regard to payments, etc. And you find that the winners from this bout of creative destruction include the tech giants. What has happened is a domestic shape upon how people live, what they buy, where they work. And that is where the large tech giants have really benefited from this whole process. So, in a way, their profits have surged, their share prices have gone up. Large companies more broadly, which have the widest troves of data and the deepest pockets to invest in digital transformation. These are the ones who've done very well. Big cities will have to reinvent themselves. They will need to expect a flood of closures, especially among small businesses and in the retail, travel, hospitality industries. This whole thing has actually accelerated the adoption of online services for everything from welfare to weddings. And I think all of you would have realized this over a period of time. Actually, health and wellness will be at the forefront of this whole transformation that is happening. And these are two areas which will be very, very important as we go forward. And this is an interesting graph. It actually talks about the revenue of Airbnb properties which happened. And, one simple difference is that you will find that those properties which were reviewed as being clean got a much higher revenue than those properties which were not reviewed as clean. So cleanliness is going to be a key criteria in our lives. This is something which we need to keep in mind. Today, when you have, when it opens up and you want to go to a restaurant, the first thing that you will ask is it clean? You want to go and stay in a resort. The first thing you will ask and you will check up with somebody, do they keep it clean? Is it sanitized? So cleanliness is going to be a very, very key criteria in our lives. So now what is happening is companies are using machine learning and algorithms to create extensive cleanliness dictionary to detect whether individual places are clean or not. They will look at conversations and then they will try to get into that. And you will find that actually clean places which follow a certain discipline on cleanliness and what I would say is sanitizing things, you will find there will be more people going there. This is another thing which a lot of us are looking at. Work from home and work from office. You're going to find that both these things are going to be relevant. One is that many jobs that were lost, many jobs that were lost in COVID-19, many of them will not return. And the labor market will adjust to a world with less spending in cities and more in suburbs. And it'll be a lot of it will be online. What does it mean for a place like Palghat? If you look around the country and you go back now and check up, you look at your neighbors, you will find that many of them who worked out of Bangalore and Mumbai and Noida have come back to Palghat. This is an opportunity to look at. Will they continue to be working from there? Will they continue to be using facilities there? So local economies will grow, while some of the larger economies, larger cities will get impacted by this. Employees from around the world are actually straddling a bridge between yesterday, when most employees at most companies were physically present at work, and the tomorrow, when a vaccine or effective treatment will open the possibility of safe return to the traditional workplace. According to certain research that was done, more than half the workers whose jobs can be done from home want to continue working remotely after the pandemic ends. And the employers seem to be embracing a very hybrid work model for the post-COVID or the living with COVID world, which, and they're planning on those lines. So you will find that companies which had a seating capacity of 10,000 will probably be recruiting 15,000 or 20,000 people to be working from the same facility. And many of them will come to office 2 or 3 times a day. So as we slowly emerge from the pandemic, the business world will have an unprecedented opportunity to actually reimagine itself. We must be intentional and equitable with how we choose to rebuild. And this is something which is very, very important on the way we look at things. Now, I talked about the digital transformation that is happening. And, there is always a question, who led the digital transformation of your company? Was it the CEO? Was it the CTO? Or was it COVID-19? And the answer actually is COVID-19 led that digital transformation of most organizations, okay? So digitalization is no longer an option. If you want to avoid shutting shop, companies will need to digitalize, whether they are the retail area or in other sectors. So simple thing, if you look at it, the number of people in your locality who would bring stuff to you, groceries, etc., if you order online, have substantially increased during this period. People are looking at, and I have a slide of that, people are looking at online payments, etc. So this is something which is so thanks to the new acquisition of channels, increased visibility, home working, and fresh, more collaborating working methods. You have things like Teams and a lot of software like that, which is helping collaboration offline. So these are all going to happen, but there are challenges there. How do I maintain the operations and efficiency of the sales team? Companies no longer have a choice. They have to digitize their sales promotion tools. So, those of you who are a bit, closer to my age will know, like, medical representatives or salesmen who are actually doing consumer product sales in various areas, or medical representatives who needed to actually meet with doctors on a regular basis. They would go to a town and they would try and finish meeting all the doctors in one day. And then there are a group of 5 or 6 medical representatives there, and one of them will, they would write the weekly reports on a daily basis, give it to one of their colleagues. And then they would tell them, I'm going home, you post it on a daily basis. All right. That is the way they would get over it. Today, people will try to do that, but you're going to find that a lot of tools, like for example, there is a tool available today which somebody is actually developing, who has indirectly a connection in Kerala, a young lady called Ritu Srivastava. Ritu's father was a former DGP, Raman Srivastava. Ritu is developing a product which actually, we can tell me that, today you have, let us say at this point of time, if you have 100 people on a call or 50 people on a call, she will actually be able to tell me how many of you are focusing on this, how many of you are doing something else. All right. So it is very simple. They have a tool which is doing that. And of course, there are issues on privacy, etc. But that is something which is happening. And you will find that tools will come up, which will actually help people to make calls in terms of what it is. So, okay, so digital payments, I was just showing this. It's a very interesting graph, but it is estimated that by 2025, over 71% of all payments that are done in India will be digital. Today, we are a very, very small percentage. So you're going to find that this actually the pandemic has actually driven this whole thing about the digital payments happening. And the RBI and others are very happy because it's going to move towards less cash kind of an economy, which is what all governments want because they can track expenses that are there. So you will also find that a lot of fintech opportunities are coming up, which are going to be catering to these benefits that are there. Several migrant jobs will be lost or replaced with cheaper alternatives. Okay, when you look at it, for us, the Middle East, look at the number of people who've returned from the Middle East. You can say that, yes, there is growth there, but very clearly, one of the interesting things that's happening, which is not really good for us as a state like Kerala, but a lot of people who were working in the Middle East, in the GCC countries, then they had to work from home. Their companies have realized that they don't need their people there. So they're telling, when you work from home in India, my costs are going to be 30%, 25, 30% of what it is that I have to pay you in the GCC. And many companies have started doing that, especially in the higher paying jobs. Now, when that gets impacted, the lower paying jobs also get impacted because the higher paying people were the one who kept the lower paying people paid because of business, etc., that they were done. So this is something which is going to happen. The other big change is that the broad border restrictions and quarantines, that will stay on for some time. And that again is going to impact a lot of businesses, including tourism and other sectors which we know about. So what you're really looking at is you're talking of a very large number of jobs that were there before COVID came in will be lost. And what they are saying is that 1/3 or more of the jobs that were lost during the pandemic will not really come back. So this is something which could impact a place like us where we are dependent heavily on the kind of remittances which come in. And we will have to be very careful there. The other one which is there is that you will find that some of the wages are going up, all right? And you find that those are specific skills which people are looking for, especially in the software sector and other areas. You'll find that those skills, the wages are substantially going up. You talk of people who have got 50% more than their existing salary, not taking up offers. You'll find that a lot of people who wanted to plan glamorous foreign holidays are not able to do it anymore. Many of the students who were to go and study in the UK and the US and Germany are not able to go. Many of them are studying from here. So these are all things which are going to have an impact on us and on those economies where they would have gone and contributed to. So you will find that there is going to be a lot of problem that is going to happen. And organizations like the ILO say that, there are tens of millions of migrants who moved to countries like Philippines, India, Ukraine, who are actually stranded and they will not be able to get back into those jobs. The global remittance flows have also come down. And you will find that it's going to be a big problem. Tourism and business travel has come down. So a lot of businesses which are depending on those changes are going to be very, very huge. And you will see that, a lot of places, you will find that there is a thought process which is going to change. I talked about cleanliness earlier, but you're going to find that people are going to be, even people earlier who used to be accepting people of a different color, a different religion, are going to say, why should I? And these are problems you're going to find in many parts of the world which will happen. So you're going to find more of regionalism developing because there'll be too many people without jobs and why should somebody else come and do the job? For people like us, we need to be clear that, look, if they don't come and do the job, we have a problem, or our people ourselves should be able to do that job. So this is something which is going to be very, very important. And these are things which are going to have a big change in the period ahead for us. So this is something which we are very, very clear about. We will have to accept an increase in the inequality across multiple classes and groups. You're going to find that the inequality in incomes is going to change. The inequality within different groups is going to change, and it is going to become very, very high. And this is a very, very high impact area. And recessions are usually worse for the poor and the unskilled. And when I talk about, when I generally talk, when I get an opportunity, I always talk about the impact hartals and bands do to our state. The people who are impacted by a hartal or a band are the poorest of the poor, the ones who actually are impacted because they are a daily wage earner. Salaried people will get their salary. Government servants get their salary. They don't even have to work. So that is the kind of change that you're going to find that is going to happen there. And there is tremendous amount, and I'm not getting into the details of that, but a lot of studies which have happened, which really reveal that by the end of July, there were, 2% fewer jobs in America paying more than 60,000 a year than in January that year. And jobs paying under 27,000 were 16% lower. So you're really talking of huge changes that are happening. Many of it we are not discussing because we are talking of the pandemic and its impact and the vaccination and things like that. So there's a very large group of people who are impacted by that. And we'll need to see what we can do for them. And I think those in business like all of you will need to really look at that, keep that in mind. The other big group who are actually impacted is a large gap remaining in the economic opportunities for women that is happening. And this is something which we'll notice, and we need to be very clear how we are going. So this is something which, again, you need to be looking at. So the ability to work from home has been a key during the pandemic. But recent studies have really shown that it has impacted people. And even when I've done some studies, you find that women are impacted badly because typically, and you would know, they were working somewhere, husband and wife were working, one child, two children, very nuclear family in a big city. They come back to their hometown. The chances are they're going to live with the in-laws. And the lady then has to look after not only her her husband, children, but also needs to look after the in-laws. And so you find suddenly that unless the family is a very understanding family, the impact on the ladies, especially the working ladies, is going to be very, very high. And these are things which we cannot ignore and we should be very carefully looking at. And something which we need. So we need to look at how do we take care of these things that are there. There will be new geopolitical equations. Okay, you're going to find the kind of US-China relations that are worsening. We're looking at the things that happened in Israel. You're talking of the kind of things which Trump did earlier. So you will find that a lot of new geopolitical equations are going to come up, and we need to see how we as a country will really be impacted by that. The other one is connected sustainability. Okay, it's actually going to be a mantra across nations. People are going to say, we need to be sustainable. You're going to find the use of plastic coming down. You'll see a lot of people buying groceries from stores today, carry their own bags there because they don't really want to buy. So you're finding a lot of change. People's mindset is changing. We want to see more greenery around. We realize today that things have to be changed. And you're going to find that a lot of these are going to have an impact in many other areas. So there'll be positive impacts, negative impacts, but we need to see how we are going to really get over those challenges as we go forward. Automation is something which will be on the rise. Substantial automation has happened, okay? There's just a graph which talks about, it's an economist graph which talks about the level of automation which has happened. And you will find that there are some areas where automation cannot happen and you will still need to have people being involved in. But this gives you a quick picture of how things have moved. Transparency will have to increase, okay? That is something which you just can't do. Transparency will also come into focus as organizations focus on driving the change. With better digital systems, this will be possible and this will be the standard expectation that is there. So transparency in organizations will be very, very important. We really are vulnerable, but I think we will be getting over these. So the way we got on with online education, how did we manage it? And I'll give you a typical example of what, I'm part of a center which works with autistic children. And we had a serious problem. How do you know that when you're face to face with them itself, it's a problem. So we started in March 2020 by doing what we said, we did pre-recorded videos for the parents to help the children. And then in June, we went into doing online sessions for the children, for the parents. It was not working. We said, then let us try the online sessions directly for the children. And the impact was very high. Two things happened. One, the children found it easier. The parents realized the kind of commitment with the staff, therapists, the teachers have in getting. So you're finding that we are in a way resilient, society. We will get over these things very fast. I come to my last slide, okay? But before that, let me tell you, family ties should become better. A lot of challenges on domestic violence, etc., are there, but we need to make a change there. There'll be a cultural change that is going to happen in the various communities. But what we in Kerala have a lot of opportunities, and this will be my last slide when I'm going to talk about that, and you can recognize the pictures that are there. One is niche Ayurveda. Okay, we need to attract experiential tourism. We need to look at how do we get people who come into Kerala for an experience. We don't want thousands of people. We want 100 people who will spend more than what 10,000 people will spend. And that is what we really need to bring in. So we need to focus on industries that for digital transformation. Refocus on agriculture and build self-sufficiency in food production as far as possible. Look at organic food. I mean, you have, Unni's on the call. But you have your own areas. Look at it. Try to see how it can become global. Further emphasis on wellness and health. These are all business opportunities. Yes, there are needs for everyone. Relook at the training needs and build better qualified people. We need to do that. Handloom, okay, is another area where you look at safe to wear clothing. Look at clothing which is not using dyes which are chemical in nature. But one big thing that is going to happen, and because of the change that is happening, you're going to find more people working from home. I only hope the local governments don't say, you work from home, you have to go pay a professional tax, or some kind of taxation comes in which dissuades people from actually working in these areas. So these are the big changes which I thought I would come up. I hope I have not taken more time.
Thank you very much, Vijayaraghavan sir, for your thought-provoking speech. You have touched upon almost all the relevant areas, and you have also answered all the questions raised by the participants. Thank you very much, sir.